Emily Morrison awakened by the sunlit window. The 8-year-old girl's blue eyes slowly scanned the room. White lace curtains swayed in the gentle breeze, revealing the summer sky of Maine stretching beyond. The crisp morning air, characteristic of summer dawns, flowed through the open window. In the distance, the early morning church bells quietly marked the time. The spacious room was furnished with antiques, all chosen by her birth mother Sarah. A Victorian dresser, mahogany bookshelf, and deep green velvet curtains, everything spoke of her mother's refined taste. The bookshelf still held cherished books like Bambi and A Little Princess that her mother used to read to her. On the bedside table, her mother's heirloom clock showed 7 o'clock. Beside it lay precious mementos of her mother, a small perfume bottle, a pearl bracelet, and their last Polaroid photo together. Emily reached out her small hand toward the large photograph displayed in the center of the room. The woman in the photo, her birth mother Sarah, smiled kindly with the same blue eyes as Emily. It was their last summer photo, taken in the garden with her mother wearing a light blue dress, embracing Emily amidst blooming roses. Both wore identical smiles. "Good morning, Mama," Emily never failed to give her daily greeting. Her fingertips felt the cold glass as she touched the photo. The large white colonial house was wrapped in a somewhat cold atmosphere. One of the most historic mansions in the Falmouth district, it had lost its warmth after her mother's death. Footsteps on the luxurious carpet echoed hollowly in the hallway. Portrait paintings on the walls silently watched over the little girl. From downstairs came the voice of her stepmother Victoria, as usual talking to someone on the phone. Her tone always seemed to carry a mix of impatience and calculation. As Emily descended the stairs for breakfast, the ivory chandelier caught the morning light, casting a soft glow. Looking down from the second floor, the entrance hall's stained glass windows, chosen by her mother, filtered in colorful light. "Good morning, Victoria." When Emily entered the kitchen, her stepmother returned a perfunctory "good morning" without lifting her perfectly made-up face. Victoria, dressed in a designer suit, looked as if she had stepped out of a fashion magazine. Her expensive Gucci handbag sat on the kitchen island counter, while her latest Motorola cell phone kept ringing. The polished stainless steel sink showed barely any signs of use. Her father William was nowhere to be seen. As branch manager of Riverside Trust Bank, he had been coming home late and leaving early lately, with fewer opportunities to see him. Emily worried about his tired expression. Before his marriage, her father always made time to spend weekends with Emily. They had a routine of having breakfast at the local diner followed by playing in the park on holidays. After marrying his new wife, her father gradually changed. Recently, she often heard voices from his study late into the night. Through the window, the river flowing near Portland glistened beyond the backyard. The water's surface shimmered silver in the morning mist. Emily recalled memories with her mother. "This river has dangerous deep spots, but also many shallow areas," her mother's voice still echoed in her ears. Playing in the river with her mother was Emily's most precious memory. Her mother taught her not only how to swim but also how to read the river's flow. Nature can be dangerous, but if you observe carefully, it will always show you a safe path. Emily had pondered the meaning of these words many times in her heart. On this increasingly hot Saturday morning, an unusual atmosphere permeated the house. The old radio announced that this day would see record-breaking temperatures. The announcer predicted temperatures exceeding 93 degrees Fahrenheit. By the kitchen window, the African violet her mother had treasured seemed to shrink ominously. "Let's go on a family picnic today." Emily tilted her head at her stepmother's sudden suggestion. This was the first time in their 2 years of marriage that Victoria had proposed a family outing. Emily felt uneasy about this sudden change in her stepmother, who usually avoided going out, saying, "Sunlight is the enemy of skin." Her voice carried an urgency that replaced her usual haughtiness. Even more surprisingly, her father, who would normally decline citing work, agreed without hesitation. "Yes, I suppose it would be nice to go out as a family once in a while." His voice had a somewhat powerless resonance. Emily could see his hand trembling slightly as he held his coffee cup, eyes fixed on the newspaper. Her stepmother began making sandwiches with unfamiliar movements. Beneath her perfect makeup, signs of unease were visible. She repeatedly checked the time and her cell phone. These awkward movements were unlike her usual perfectionist self as a luxury real estate broker. Emily noticed her hands trembling slightly as she cut the bread. Her fingers showed unusual haste as she layered ham and cheese. Emily changed into a light blue dress and put on white socks with brown leather shoes. These were the last clothes her mother had bought her. As she arranged her long brown hair, she gazed at herself in the mirror. An anxious expression dwelt in her blue eyes, identical to her mother's in the photograph. The girl in the mirror wore an uneasy expression, as if sensing something. When they got into the car, Emily caught her stepmother and father exchanging glances in the rearview mirror. Her heart began to race. 2 years after her mother's death, the existence of the $50 million inheritance had definitely changed the family atmosphere. From the picnic basket placed in the back seat, something cold seemed to emanate. Her father's Oldsmobile Cutlass quietly pulled away. As Emily watched the scenery flow past the window, she remembered her last conversation with her mother. "You'll certainly live strongly. When you need it, I'll surely protect you." At that time, she hadn't yet understood the true meaning of those words exchanged in the hospital room. The car left town and headed toward a deserted riverside. In the morning mist, tree shadows swayed ominously. The car arrived at a secluded riverside. The sound of tires on gravel was jarring in the strange stillness. Emily's heart filled with a mixture of nostalgia and anxiety. This place thick with trees was a memorable spot she often visited with her mother. It was famous as a dangerous river with deep pools alternating with shallow areas. A faded red warning sign still stood, though weathered. Her mother had always explained the precautions for swimming in this river. "There are whirlpools in the deep parts. But the shallows are safe. Look at the color of the stones on the riverbed. Places with white stones are shallow, places with black stones are deep." Her mother's words came back vividly now. "No one will come here." Her stepmother's voice rang out higher than usual. Her cheeks twitched slightly beneath her perfect makeup. Her expensive high heels sank into the soft earth. She had brought sneakers as backup, something she would never normally wear. This unnaturalness made Emily's heart pound. Her father silently began unloading the picnic supplies from the car. His movements had a somewhat mechanical, emotionless quality. There was no trace left of the kind father who used to take Emily to the park every weekend. As Emily got out of the car, she observed her surroundings. Indeed, there was no one around. Only the spire of St. Luke's Church was visible in the distance. The sound of church bells striking 9:30 carried faintly on the wind. The picnic blanket was spread out, and her stepmother's awkwardly made sandwiches were laid out. There was a main specialty lobster roll, but it was carelessly stuffed. A humble homemade lunch unlike her stepmother who only frequented upscale restaurants. Her father fidgeted restlessly, checking his cell phone repeatedly. The numbers 917 on the phone screen gleamed brightly in the sunlight. The early morning river surface was still shrouded in mist. A fog rising from the water covered the surface like a white veil. Morning sunlight filtering through the trees painted the mist golden. "It's getting hot," her stepmother remarked. Today's heat, forecast to exceed 93 degrees Fahrenheit, was stifling even in the morning. Light reflecting off the river surface dazzled Emily's eyes. The voices of birds her mother had loved were absent today. "Emily, come here. You can see fish." Suddenly pulled to the riverside by her father's hand. His hand was cold and trembling slightly. The touch of his hand was completely different from the father Emily knew. For the first time, Emily looked directly into her father's eyes. There, unfamiliar emotions swirled. Sadness? Regret? Or fear? The moment she felt a heavy weight on her back, Emily understood everything. Her stepmother's anxiety beneath perfect makeup, her father's trembling hands, the unnatural picnic suggestion. The meaning of it all became clear in an instant. "Mama, help me," she cried in her heart. And the next moment, Emily was thrown into the cold water. The water was colder than expected. Emily desperately held her breath while suppressing panic. In the murky water, her mother's voice came back to her. "Panic is fatal. Slowly, stay calm. When you hold your breath, first curl your body into a ball. The buoyancy will naturally make you float." That teaching was now saving Emily's life. Underwater, memories with her mother flashed by like a film reel. Picnics by the river, chasing butterflies in the afternoon, the warmth of her mother's hand. "You'll be all right." Her mother's final words strongly supported Emily's heart. Her stepmother's voice could be heard from above the surface. "Search. Make sure she's definitely sunk." That voice carried a madness she had never heard before. Emily opened her eyes. Even in the murky water, she could faintly see the white stones marking the shallow area. Her father began searching the water, creating splashes. Emily instinctively swam toward the deep part, desperately moving her body while remembering how to swim as her mother had taught her. The riverbed formation her mother had taught her now became her lifeline. Don't fight the current. Swim diagonally. Then you'll surely reach a safe place. Can you see her? Her stepmother's voice carried growing anxiety. It's murky, hard to see, her father's confused voice. She must have been swept away. With this current. Her stepmother's cold voice carried across the water. The sound of her removing her heels and changing into sneakers could be heard. But if she's found downstream? Her father's voice wavered anxiously. It's fine. I researched that this river has had many missing persons. No one will be suspicious. Let's hurry back. Emily's lungs began screaming for air. She needed oxygen. But she couldn't surface yet. Her mother's voice guided her. Beyond this deep pool, there's a shallow area. If you let the current take you. The teachings from her memory naturally moved Emily's body. The water's flow was surely guiding her to safety. The sound of their footsteps grew distant. The crunch of pebbles. Car doors closing. The engine sound gradually fading away. Still, Emily desperately held her breath at the spot her mother had taught her about. Finally, complete silence fell. Sunlight reflecting off the water's surface felt like her mother's smile. Emily was certain now. Her mother had known until the end that this day would come. That's why she had so carefully taught her how to swim in the river. Her 9th birthday. Just months away from when the inheritance rights would take effect. All the pieces of the plan were becoming clear. And her mother's love had surely protected Emily's life. In the murky water, the girl's consciousness began to fade. However, in her heart, the promise to her mother shone brightly. I will surely live. Just as Mama taught me. Under the water, Emily's blue eyes gleamed with strong determination. After the footsteps had completely disappeared, Emily slowly began to move. Her lungs screamed for oxygen. The edges of her consciousness began wavering like black haze. The shallow part of the river, that Mama taught me about. While desperately fighting off approaching unconsciousness, she recalled her mother's teachings. In the murky water, with lungs almost at their limit, Emily carefully moved forward. Enduring the sting in her eyes as she kept them open underwater, she checked the color of the riverbed stones. From black stones to white ones. Yes, the place with white stones is shallow. Her mother's voice guided Emily forward. The misty underwater world was strangely quiet. Schools of fish slowly swam around Emily. Suddenly, her feet touched the riverbed. Emily carefully, stumblingly stood up. The moment her face broke the surface, fresh air rushed into her lungs. While coughing, she desperately took in oxygen. Her throat burned with pain. But she was definitely alive. Her reflection in the water's surface seemed to resemble her mother. Shivering and soaking wet, Emily checked her surroundings. No sign of her stepmother and father. No sound of cars. Only St. Luke's church bells tolling 10 o'clock in the distance. Hiding in the shadows of trees, Emily crawled onto the shore. Small stones painfully pricked her knees. Her light blue dress was muddy, and her brown leather shoes were heavy with water. Water dripped from her long hair. This dress, the last thing her mother bought her, would probably never be the same. However, despite the cold and fatigue throughout her body, Emily's mind was remarkably calm. The eyes of the girl who had returned from the brink of death held a mature light. Summer flowers bloomed along the riverside. She recalled their names one by one as her mother had taught her. This is black-eyed Susan, this is New England aster. By tracing these memories, Emily tried to calm herself. Her mother's words came back to her. This path leads to the church. If you're ever in trouble, seek out Father Margaret there. He's an old friend of mine. Had her mother really predicted everything? Deep love and gratitude for her mother welled up in Emily's heart. Until the very end, her mother had prepared to protect her daughter. Shivering from cold, Emily began walking through the forest, trying to avoid being seen. A path she had walked many times with her mother. Sunlight filtering through the trees made her water droplet-filled hair sparkle. Though her feet were unsteady, she moved forward one step at a time, surely. Small birds watched the strange sight of the girl. Her wet socks rubbed against her feet, probably causing blisters. But she couldn't stop. Her mother's voice pushed Emily forward. You're a strong girl. My precious treasure. Repeating these words in her heart, Emily kept walking. Several times she heard car sounds, and each time Emily hid in the shadows of trees. Her heart pounded. Perhaps her stepmother and father had returned. To check. To erase evidence. She reacted sensitively to the sound of stepping on fallen leaves. Even the sound of squirrels dropping nuts made Emily tremble. Though the summer sun grew stronger, Emily's body grew colder from her wet clothes. She could tell her lips were turning purple. Still, she couldn't stop walking. Events from the past raced through Emily's mind like a film reel. 2 years since her mother's death. Her mother's end, processed as an unnatural accident. The sudden appearance of her stepmother. After the lavish wedding, her father's gradual changes. Weekend picnics becoming less frequent, hushed arguments heard from her father's study late at night. And now, just months away from her 9th birthday. How her stepmother's gaze had changed as the inheritance time approached. All the dots were now connecting. The old church's spire began to appear through the trees. Emily's steps grew slightly faster. A place her mother had trusted. The white walls reflected the morning sun, shining like angel wings. Surely, here would be safe. Before the weathered church door, Emily took a deep breath. The image of the Virgin Mary in the stained glass somehow reminded her of her mother. With trembling hands, she knocked on the heavy door. Once, twice, 3 times. Each knock echoed through the quiet church. A faint scent of incense drifted from the old wooden door. The door opened, revealing Father Margaret's surprised expression. "Oh my, Emily." The priest's eyes fixed on the soaking wet girl. "What happened?" His voice carried a tone as if he had already realized something. Wrapped in a warm blanket, Emily slowly began to tell her story. With a trembling voice, but never showing tears. With the strength inherited from her mother, she told everything. The priest occasionally gasped, quietly listening to the girl's words. Sometimes murmuring her mother's name nostalgically. Just then, a breaking news report began playing on the church's old television. The tube screen flickered. Breaking news. Today, an 8-year-old girl reportedly drowned in a river in Maine. Police and fire departments are currently conducting a search. According to witnesses, the images of her father and stepmother on screen. Both showing expressions of grief in perfect acting. Her stepmother dabbing her eyes with an expensive handkerchief. Her father hanging his head. But Emily could see it. The cold calculation beneath their performance. Emily whispered softly toward the screen. "Mama, I lived because I believed in your words. And I'll keep on living." There was no more hesitation in her eyes. Light streaming through the church's stained glass windows painted Emily's wet hair in rainbow colors. Father Margaret picked up the telephone receiver, beginning to tell the truth to the police. His hand holding the black receiver trembled slightly. Outside, a new rain had quietly begun to fall. As summer sunshine and rain intermingled, the truth was about to be revealed. The police interrogation room had a surprisingly warm atmosphere. A kind-eyed female detective sat across from Emily. A cup of hot cocoa sat on the desk. "You did very well." Emily nodded slowly at the detective's words. Though she had changed into dry clothes, she still felt as if the river's coldness lingered somewhere in her body. During the interrogation, all the truth came to light. Even her mother's accidental death 2 years ago possibly had been planned. Signs of tampering with her mother's car brakes. And the beautiful real estate broker who appeared right after that. Victoria had planned everything from the start. Her father, being questioned in another room, confessed everything. She appeared at my bank as an investor, and from there deepened our relationship. His exhausted voice drifted into the interrogation room. The $50 million inheritance. After Sarah's death, the inheritance rights were frozen until Emily turned 9. Her mother, together with her lawyer, had inserted that clause. The fact that her stepmother had no inheritance rights at all. Everything had been a strategy to protect her beloved daughter. Your mother was a wise woman, explained her mother's lawyer who had been called to the police station. She had prepared everything in case something happened to her. Emily nodded quietly. She now understood the depth of her mother's love. That night, Emily fell asleep at the home of her mother's best friends. In the soft bed, tears finally flowed. Fear, relief, and deep gratitude for her mother. All emotions streamed down her cheeks as warm tears. 1 year later, Emily was living with her new family. Her mother's best friend Jane and her husband Tom loved Emily like their own daughter. The garden bloomed with flowers her mother had loved, and on holidays, the family cooked together. The warm daily life gradually healed Emily's heart. A letter from her father in prison arrived as autumn deepened. I know this can't be forgiven. But I'm truly sorry. Words of apology written in trembling handwriting. Emily stared at the letter for a long time. Then, her mother's diary was found. In the old leather-bound diary, deep love for her daughter was written in delicate handwriting. Even if something happens to me, Emily will surely survive. Because she's my beloved strong child. Emily touched these words again and again. On her 9th birthday, Emily was celebrated surrounded by her mother's best friends and old friends. 9 candles on the cake flickered gently. Happy birthday, Emily. Wrapped in warm voices, the girl closed her eyes. She had one wish. Mama, I'll live feeling your love. That weekend, Emily visited the river with her new family. There was no fear anymore. The summer sunlight reflecting on the water's surface felt like her mother's smile. Mama, I didn't forget your words. That's why I could live. Emily's words echoed gently across the water's surface. Wildflowers on the riverbank swayed in the wind. Emily remembered each flower name her mother had taught her. Each time, she felt as if she could hear her mother's voice. There stood a girl, protected by her new family and wrapped in her mother's love. The summer sunlight gently illuminated her cheeks. Emily's eyes held a light never seen before. It was the light of determination to live strongly, overcoming sadness. And above all, it was the radiance of deep love inherited from her mother.